Feeling and referencing, feeling and locating, feeling and positioning in environments. That's our live session today. So we'll understand this in depth and compare this feeling and positioning with some issues people with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's have. But our focus is on feeling and referencing, feeling and positioning. So look, you arrive at a place that's somewhat unfamiliar to you. You perceive that entire place, and in that place you perceive you're feeling something, and you position yourself in that place. Look. Feeling and referencing, feeling and positioning, and we're talking about very interesting things, things that involve interoception, what you actually feel, and perception itself, how you position yourself in space. And one way to position yourself in space, which is really cool, is through facial expressions. You can be happy, you can be sad, you can be stressed. Your whole body positions itself. When you position yourself, your brain practically works together with those nerve endings that have myelin around the axon, which is muscle. You do this and close, you're controlling it with your brain. When you do this grimace, you're controlling it with your brain. It's easy because your axon has myelin. Yes, but there are axons that descend from the brain to your stomach, to your viscera that don't have myelin. The axon without myelin is smooth. So what are we talking about? Look, interoception is something without myelin. It's difficult to control. Even some muscles are postural. It's difficult to control. But there are things that are simple to control because they have myelin. You control it quickly. You control your muscles quickly. But you don't control your feelings quickly because they're slow. But you feel them. They're slow. And throughout the day, it stays. It keeps moving. So what do we want to tell you today? And it's good for you to understand Alzheimer's, to understand Paxo a little more. Paxo has a lot to do with the motor part. It has to do with this structure, with this synchronization of the motor part, its movement. You've often noticed yourself in the movements you make. You've often noticed yourself positioning yourself when you arrive in a room. Sometimes a little more tense, sometimes a little more comfortable, but you position yourself in the room. This positioning in the room is simple for you, automatic. But if you already have Parkinson's, you'll have difficulty positioning yourself in the room because Parkinson's is related to movement. Movement is compromised. So the movement of positioning yourself has a lot to do with referencing yourself, positioning yourself, referencing yourself in the environment, but also as a person. Look, I'll refer to myself as a father, as a mother, as an uncle, as an engineer, as a student, as a secretary, as a musician. I always refer to myself in the environment. This reference of being, of course, involves feelings, but it involves bodily movement to position yourself a little more tense, a little more closed, a little more open, a little better positioned. I don't know. So Parkinson's will take away that perception. Look how interesting. With Parkinson's, you'll lose the death of movement as a reference. You start somehow. I sent you a text, a blog. There it talks about the more scientific part, what happens in the brain with Parkinson's, what happens in the brain with Alzheimer's. The scientific part is there. Here's our part of starting to understand existentialism, what these people feel, or what you or I will feel if we ever go through this. For example, with Parkinson's, you'll go in front of the mirror and you'll look, and your expression of I'm sad, I'm worried, I'm happy, I'm joyful, I'm downcast. All those twitches you have on your face with Parkinson's, it will be harder to do and recognize. Look how annoying that is, right? With Parkinson's, you'll have trouble doing, of acting on your muscular contractions and recognizing the muscular contractions that you are doing, that you are being, then you contract, and you are basically no longer being that. You are not being a movement. You are not positioning yourself. You are not referencing yourself. Just imagine you are arriving at a party, and at this party you will arrive and you do not know how to act, how to position yourself, okay? If you are compact, you have this difficulty in positioning yourself in the living room, in the kitchen, in the bedroom, at the table, when eating, when getting up. The difficulty of positioning yourself, the difficulty of referencing yourself, the difficulty of deciding which consciousness to use in the next moment. This is the idea I want to convey to you. Understand which consciousness will you use? The consciousness of a father, a son, a mother, a friend, a student, a teacher. Which consciousness will you use in this next moment to use this consciousness to speak, to move, to create situations? But you will position yourself, you will reference yourself based on something, but you have Parkinson's, your difficulty is anatomical, your difficulty is cerebral, you can no longer position yourself. This is the difficulty of these people with Parkinson's. What do they need most? Belonging. We'll get there soon. So what they need is something else. What I'm saying is when you develop Parkinson's syndrome, you'll have difficulty positioning yourself in different environments, even inside your home. Today, it's fine. Let's suppose you're now going to be like Lula when he gave his speech at the UN. You're going to give a speech at the UN. Oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to speak? You're going to have trouble positioning yourself. You're also going to have trouble feeling. And then Alzheimer's sets in. We're talking about births, positioning. And then you don't know what your posture is. More upright, more sincere, more calm, more passive. What's your posture? Okay, this difficulty in the UN example is a great example, but if you have Parkinson's, you'll have difficulty at children's birthday parties, at home, at meal times, at drinking times, before bed. You'll have difficulty positioning yourself because there's a brain impairment in this connection between brain and muscles with axons, with myelin. So for me, this is my insight into the Parkinson's field. And how could we measure how well or poorly you're doing, or whether you're stopping the progression of Parkinson's or not? I always recommend measuring N1 in sleep analysis and measuring the RE and tonic. That's precisely where things try to calibrate. You have to make a checklist of your tonic part, your body part. Obviously, N3 is very important because it's the time when brainwashing is taking place, so this is very important. Alzheimer's has a mess between neurons, and then beta amyloid can accumulate. It can compromise a lot of little things, which are on the blog I mentioned. And Parkinson's also has other types of brain impairments. But what we need is to be sure if the N3 is working properly for those with Parkinson's, and if the re-and-tonic system is working properly for those with Parkinson's. If it isn't, try to adjust it, try to improve it, try to improve the quality of life for these people or for yourself if you ever have Parkinson's, and belonging is the soul of it. Because sometimes you'll see that this individual with Parkinson's, who was your father, who was your uncle, who was your brother, who was your son, who was your friend, who has Parkinson's, can no longer adapt to speech or the environment we find ourselves in. They seem isolated, yes, because Parkinson's is this difficulty in positioning oneself, in referencing oneself. Parkinson's is, more or less, the death of movement reference. I can't reference myself through my movement. I can't project my movement. Look at the care we have to take. Obviously, there's a whole progression of Parkinson's, but there's also a non-evolution of PACOS for those who experience it too. And if you don't have PACOS and are experiencing this, you have to increase your flexibility in how you position yourself in environments. And then you're within normality, which is what I like to talk about most. People who are within normality also can position themselves in Environment, I don't know if you've ever seen it. Sometimes you go into a place and that person is wearing inappropriate clothing for that environment, or their body movements are inappropriate for that environment. So it would almost be a repositioning within normality. There's no pathology, but you don't know how to position yourself in environments. Okay, let's move on to Alzheimer's. We've already said about Alzheimer's that you can't perceive yourself in your feelings. You'll lose the sentimental narrative. This is very complicated. I could compare this to, it's a very pathological thing in the sense that you no longer feel, but you don't reference the feeling. You can even address some things, but they don't resonate. They don't resonate in your chest, in your emotions. You're just speaking loose words, but there's no feeling. This is for you to understand who has Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is there saying things, but not feeling, not being. So they're two very strong, painful pathologies, and Alzheimer's for me is the death of reference and feeling. It's as if you have interoception, which is all your visceral feelings and visceral tensions, and you've turned that off. You can no longer reference yourself through interoception, and then you start to develop, if it's pathological, the Alzheimer's side, and the neuron itself, the neuron starts to get dirtier. It starts to break the microtubules inside the neuron, starts to get dirty outside, starts to form very complicated coils of dirt outside the neurons, beta bialoid, that gets in the way. This scientific part is a little bit on the blog, but you can find much more elsewhere. But the fact is that this person starts to no longer have a sense of reference. And this person sometimes is our friend, our father, our brother, our colleague, our teacher, and they've lost their feelings, but they remain. And that's important. Understanding that they've lost their feelings and not expecting them to feel them when they see you, because they won't, they can't. They might recall a memory, but that memory comes without feeling, without a soul, without an emotional structure, because it's Alzheimer's. And I tell you, and I always tell researchers that for me, Alzheimer's has to do with basic REM and N2 sleep, with sleep analysis. Obviously N3 too, because N3 is where the brainwashing happens. It's where you really go to a very sleepy place where you erase everything and your brain starts to clean itself. If you don't have N3, your neurons get very dirty. They start to get increasingly dirty, have more difficulty functioning, and can recur, potentially leading to Alzheimer's. So N3 is very important for this, but we don't know if it's cause or effect. So this is for the scientists, for the researchers. For us, we just want, when we see someone with Alzheimer's, to feel a little that person is feeling, and they're not feeling. They get lost in their feelings. So sometimes you miss someone, you think, wow, I miss someone. Then when you get to Alzheimer's, you don't have that longing, it's gone. You don't have that feeling, but the sentence can be the same. Oh, I had a beautiful house on the farm. Okay, I had a beautiful house on the farm. When you speak with feeling, you feel the house. With Alzheimer's, you don't feel it anymore. You only have sentences, you only have words, and you don't reference. It's the death of the narrative. The narrative doesn't have it. It no longer connects to the emotional part. It's disconnected from the emotional part. And Parkinson's is body positioning, and body positioning, you get a little lost. You don't know how to position yourself. And when you position yourself, you don't realize you're in the position you're in. So these are two important batteries. And these people, how can they be helped? Belonging. Even though she has these serious pathologies, she needs to feel belonging, loved, and that at least when she says something or acts in some way, it resonates. It has some kind of feedback. Because even with feedback, she won't feel located, she won't feel present, she won't have feelings, but she will at least have belonging, which is the information that reaches everyone in common. and the information that reaches her and she passes on, everyone perceives the same information, and this gives her belonging to the group. That's what these people need. Obviously, good nutrition, walking, a little sun, good water, that's fine, but group belonging is important. How many times have you noticed that some families go out several times a week? They go out with their pets. But sometimes elderly people who already have symptoms of Parkinson's or Alzheimer's stay at home. They take care of pets more than the elderly. So what's this all about, right? I even put this pet in a slightly more humorous form, actually. Pet as belonging is the eating disorder, and it's the walks. Walking, belonging, and eating well. That's what these two pathologies need most. Good walks, of course, as you can. When you skip walking, of course, it's not walking on a treadmill. It's walking in a good environment, in an environment where you perceive yourself as that environment. It's food, it's movement, it's belonging, and then you'll get better, and these people will get better and feel like they belong to a group. That's us. So if I have Alzheimer's, if I have Parkinson's, I'm in a group and I feel my difficulties, but I feel like the group is me. So my difficulties are met by my mother, my father, my uncle, my brother, my cousin, my friend, my partner, my caregiver. By those close to me, they take care of the differences I need. And by taking care of these differences, I am whole again. So belonging brings the individual back. Now, what doesn't bring the individual back is pity. Others deal with pity and don't provide any path to belonging. They don't allow this person to be in belonging because they can no longer be in movement. They can no longer be in feeling because feeling and referencing themselves is difficult for them. So they will try to be in belonging. And this belonging is a group. The person leaves the confines but knows the other is there and is helping, and then it goes back to being. It's so important for us to talk about this because nowadays we're on social media and it's more important to stay on Facebook, finding things on Facebook, on your WhatsApp, on Facebook, than to talk or interact with our elders. We basically abandon the elders. And the elderly lose their sense of belonging and they fall, sometimes due to Alzheimer's, sometimes due to Parkinson's, due to loss of appetite. And there's also multiple sclerosis, other diseases, of course. And you're sometimes addicted to the internet, to WhatsApp, and our children and adolescents are basically addicted to the color of the screen, to games, to what social media offers, to oxytocin, to adrenaline, to these drugs. These are endogenous, released by the brain itself, but the person becomes addicted to those drugs. And life slips through your hands. So I'll leave you with one thing. These are two very interesting questions that you have to ask yourself whenever you think at a certain point, man, have I gone too far on social media? Am I wasting more than an hour a day looking at Facebook or WhatsApp? Am I missing out on life? So the question you might ask yourself in these moments, and I'll leave it to you, is what did I really want to do? This question you'll ask yourself at various points in your life. What did I really want to do? And the other question is, what am I doing now? Because sometimes you spend 2, 3 hours watching the news on a channel that only broadcasts fake news, and you're just pumped up with adrenaline, cortisol, dopamine, serotonin, all the things your brain secretes when you see scandalous news. And you start to get addicted to Facebook, addicted to WhatsApp, addicted to fake news, and you stop belonging to or end up belonging to hate groups. And then you do a lot of stupid things. You support criminals, criminal politicians, extremely rich criminals, And you support them because you're washed up with fake news saying they're good people, they have money, good people, they have 4 or 5 planes, they launder money from all sides and control social media and your thoughts and ideas through the drugs you release in your head when you're looking at Facebook, WhatsApp, and this fake news that comes through the internet. And then your head gets turned. Oh, how is this enemy so and so doing well now? And our great friend and our great Savior, our great Messiah will now be arrested. He will be arrested because he is a thief. He will be arrested because he is a militiaman. But on social media, you never saw that. You didn't see it because you were drugged, because you were addicted to social media, because you couldn't see the truth, because you gave up your entire life and dedicated it to a faction, to a network of lies. That's why the social network doesn't want to be regulated, because the more it lies, the more it earns. But society, people are losing their sense of belonging. Real society, our elderly, our people, our birthing mothers, our Alzheimer's patients. Because, man, how are they going to feel a sense of belonging? Through communion among us, through relationships, through information, through shared information. The smell of beans, the food, the chair, the swing, the walk. This gives you belonging because it's information that reaches the group in common. But if your group is based on fake news, lies are what give you belonging. And you think life is a life of lies, and that lie, after 1,000 times, becomes the truth. And then when the great Messiah is arrested, oh, injustice, it was a lie. You believed in lies, and now you're encountering a reality different from your group, a fake news group, a closed group, a group belonging to those who believe only lies, and our reality of belonging one to one. No, I'm an enemy of that one. I'm no longer a friend of this one, nor a friend of that one, because a friend is only someone who believes what I think is the truth. You know, it's total radicalism. It's a lack of belonging in the materiality of life. And you're stuck on lies and fake news, only seeking to find what you believe. You no longer want to seek the truth. You want to seek what you believe. You're addicted to it. Guys, I wanted to make this clear to you because feeling and referencing yourself is important. Every time you go somewhere, you have to say what I'm feeling and how I'm going to position myself. But it's important for you to know that with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, this will be very difficult. People with Parkinson's have difficulty positioning themselves, moving, and people with Alzheimer's have difficulty feeling. So self-perception is difficult for these people. So where do we bring them together and become one again? In belonging, we are together. You with Alzheimer's, another with Parkinson's, another with this condition, another without a problem. We are together. A society with materiality, not a society in a virtual world of fake news and lies. Let's return to reality, the reality of communion among us.